So I think we'll give it another minute. I know we have everybody, and if everybody wants to put in the chat, who are you? Like, tell us who you are, you know, what business are you represent, what organization, and then because we want to know who we're talking to today. Thank you to the Estradas, Ruth and Lewis, for kicking it off. Okay, so Lillian and Maria, did you guys want to kick it off? I know we're waiting for one more panelist.
Yes, we will start with Lillian. Lillian, why don't you give us the start?
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for joining us for our webinar, Small Business Big Impact. My name is Lillian Jarquin. I am the Research and Outreach Coordinator here at the George M. Perez Metropolitan Center with FIU. So I'm joined by my colleagues. You've heard Brian speaking now, Dr. Maria Ilcheva, and a couple other panelists. And we'll be going over the state of small businesses in Miami-Dade County. On your screen, you see an agenda of what we'll be going over today. And I also wanted to share an infographic with you all, just kind of like a snapshot of small businesses in Miami-Dade County. You'll see a couple numbers here, the number of establishments in top 5 sectors. By amount, you'll see a distribution of firms by employment size. You'll see a couple data points in the middle regarding employment and wages. And towards the bottom, you'll see some updated economic recovery. This is specific to Miami-Dade County. The center has been working on an economic recovery index for South Florida. And this is some data points from our latest release. So that being said, I will hand this off to Brian for our official introduction.
Okay, thank you, Lillian, and thank you to Maria. This is a great partnership. I always love working with the Metropolitan Center. Maria and I always joke that we're like, hey, in another working group or another meeting and things like that. We always work really closely because we're both part of the FIU family, and we're also out in the community working a lot with a lot of the chambers and the cities and the counties and things like that. And as Lillian mentioned, I'm Brian Van Hook. I'm Regional Director of the Small Business Development Center under FIU's College of Business. We are an SBA resource partner, so shout out to Althea and the great hardworking staff at the SBA District Office and the SBA who celebrated their 60th birthday, I think a week ago, but great agency. And I'm just proud to be in part of this panel discussion. We have a really great panel, including Althea and Mirna, and Beatrice and Fabiana. And what this is focused on is really about small businesses in Miami-Dade County and providing some data, but also getting some information. And this actually started a few years ago when we worked with Maria and JP Morgan Chase, and they developed a report on small businesses in Miami-Dade County called Small Business Big Impact. Because I know there's a lot of focus on cryptocurrency and tech and venture capital, and that's important, and that's kind of the future. But as everybody knows that works with small businesses, those are the backbone of our economy here in Miami-Dade County. And most of the small businesses are micro businesses, 10 employees or less, 5 employees or less. So the report that Maria put together and that they're going to be updating is focused on kind of who are these small businesses, what are the characteristics of the businesses, what are some of the commonalities, what are groups like us seeing. So this panel discussion is one of part of that process, because we really want to hear from the local groups that are doing the hard work in the community about what they're seeing from small businesses. And I can tell you a lot of folks, because we posted this report on our website once it's published, a lot of folks, they love SBDC, but they do circle back and say, where's that report again? Can I get a copy of that report? So I tip my hat to Maria, because it's always really great information. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Maria to present some of the report highlights, but I would really stress this is going to be important for a lot of the chambers, for a lot of the local officials, for the small businesses, because this gives you a snapshot of what's going on in Miami-Dade County, and what are some of the opportunities and the challenges that small businesses are facing. So with that, I'll turn to Maria.
Thank you, Brian. Lilian, you can stop sharing now so I can share my screen. And I want to welcome you on behalf of the FIU Metropolitan Center, the panelists, and Brian Van Hook, the SBDC, our co-conspirators in this report and in organizing the panel. What I will show you are some of the statistics that you also saw in the infographic, and somebody already asked in the chat if they cannot get access to the infographic. We will certainly make that available on our website, and we will share it also with all of you who are participating in this meeting. So I believe you should be able to see my slides here. Lilian, correct? Yes. All right. So as Brian mentioned, we've been working for a while now in understanding our small business community, and the kickoff was actually back in 2018 when, again, we collaborated with FIU SBDC with support from JP Morgan Chase in producing that first of its kind report for our community. We wanted to compile all the data in a single report and with infographics to kind of present the landscape. What is the small business composition? What are wages? What are the industry sectors in these small business establishments? So the second report that in which we're providing more current data was actually developed right at the time when COVID struck. And at that time, we thought, well, we have all this data. That's, again, a snapshot of our small business landscape. But what else can we do? In our current report, we actually conducted interviews in March and April last year with the small business service providers, some of whom we have on this panel to understand what they were doing, right? How they were pivoting before that pivot word even became so widely used. But what I will show you is, again, the snapshot, and I want to know that things don't change rapidly from one year to the next. We need to have a long-term view with the baseline understanding of our small business community, and we need to think not reactively, but proactively, knowing what we know and knowing the structure of our economy and overall nationally, but also in South Florida. What do we need to get ahead of the curve in order to make our small businesses competitive and prosperous, and thus, through the multiplier effect, actually uplift the whole community? I'll go very quickly over the slides. We'll share the report with you, as I said. We do some comparisons. First of all, what's the case for small businesses? Why should we focus on small businesses in particular, rather than trying to either create enhance entrepreneurial opportunities for those who want to create businesses, or focus on larger establishments? Well, the reality is our economy, national, but even more so in Miami-Dade, is a small business economy. Miami-Dade has the largest percentage of micro establishments of any large metropolitan area. And that in itself presents a challenge. What we call micro establishments, Brian alluded to it, are those businesses who employ fewer than 10 workers. So there are particular challenges that they deal with, both in terms of operational capacity, but also in terms of access to loans, improving their revenues, paying higher wages, etc. As a side note, I want to mention one of my colleagues actually alerted me. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there is a national report that came out from a survey that shows almost half of small businesses, 49%, indicated they find it challenging to find employees, right? You hear about labor shortages, you hear about that as a national challenge, but for small businesses, it's even a bigger challenge. Why? Because many small businesses, again, given their size, given their capacity, are not able to compete with the larger corporations or with the medium-sized enterprises in terms of salary offerings, in terms of benefits, in terms of maybe also in terms of job stability and ability to provide full-time jobs. So just as a side note here, that's not part of the report because it just came out literally yesterday, that survey. As I mentioned, there are particular challenges for small businesses in terms of wages, and you see here in the bottom left what is the salary differential. When we look at this, is specifically for Miami-Dade County, businesses with fewer than 100 employees, their wages are about over 20% below those of the wages of larger establishments. Also, I want to mention that even though the report focuses on Miami-Dade, we also wanted to put it in context. In other words, not just track change over time, but see how we fare comparatively with other communities. And you see that done by other organizations, certainly the Beacon Council in their excellent reports, comparative reports, make these comparisons as well. But we focused on areas that are more or less similar to ours, right? In terms of economic structure, in terms of demographics, and obviously in terms of size, and what we consider our competitors, right? So you see some of the basic statistics here. The number of business establishments is steadily growing over time. That's a positive development, growth. We want to see growth in terms of numbers, but we also want to see growth in terms of revenues. We want to see growth in terms of wages, and certainly improvement in business survival rates. I'll get back to that later. Oftentimes we don't focus enough. We focus on established businesses, right? Employer businesses, but there is a whole different side of business activity that oftentimes is overlooked. And what I'm referencing here are the non-employer businesses. You may have heard, and I'll certainly show some of the numbers, how we rank in terms of entrepreneurial activity, is that Miami is great on these metrics, right? We're great at business creation. We typically lead these rankings. These are also what we call non-employer businesses. Over the period that we examined, for which data is available, there has which is the last decade, there has been a 60% growth in non-employer establishments. That is triple the rate of the United States. We need to be aware of the statistics. Our residents, our migrant communities, even our visitors, those who are moving from elsewhere in the county, in the country, are creating businesses at a faster pace than anywhere else in the country. And we also have a larger self-employment rate, about 15% than the United States. Most of our workforce is employed in these small businesses or are small business owners, even if they don't employ others, accounting for 58%. 58% of firms with fewer than 100 workers. So there is a definite case to be made on our focus, and our panelists will speak on that, to concentrate on growing, on sustaining these types of establishments. Jobs, but we need to recognize that where these jobs are and support the providers of these jobs consequently. Miami, obviously, as we know, has an economy geared towards services, not surprising, which is based on the strength of our accommodation, food services, retail sectors related to tourism. Most of our private workers are in retail, healthcare and social assistance, accommodation and food services. Altogether, the top 5 sectors that include transportation and warehousing and professional, scientific, and technical services employ 56% of the workforce. Businesses are across a range of industry sectors, and combined, these top 5 sectors that you see in the top of this graphic employ account for about 59% of businesses. So these are our strengths. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't focus on diversifying and providing opportunities for growth for other businesses, but this is, as I said, where our economy currently stands. I already mentioned the wage gap between larger and smaller businesses, and again, that's also related to the industry sectors of our business establishments. But it presents a challenge of competitiveness, right? We need to be able to recruit talented workforce, to retain talented workforce, and offering wages as well as the supplementary benefits that many of our workers seek should be one of the goals of our small businesses and our economy overall. My next slide shows a few of the interesting points that I mentioned earlier related to entrepreneurial activity. You may have noticed, you may have seen national reports that talk about the rate of new business creation nationally surpassing pre-pandemic levels. I would personally like to dig deeper into that and to understand whether we're creating new business owners, or whether we had so many businesses close or had to shift their activities that they're closing one business establishment and opening another, seeking new opportunities, new ventures, and new markets. As I mentioned, in the last decade, Miami, our area has consistently ranked in the top the top 3 of entrepreneurial activity, and actually in 2017 we became #1 in new business creation. However, on the flip side, we are also ranking very high or conversely towards the bottom actually of startup employment, new business employment, and revenue growth. Again, that has policy implications where we need to not just create new businesses, but provide them with the tools and the resources for these businesses to become sustainable ventures beyond the typical 5-year survival rate for a new business. What plays against us is also that our entrepreneurs, a larger percentage of our entrepreneurs create businesses out of necessity rather than because they find an opportunity. In Miami-Dade County, that percentage is about 19 compared to about 11% nationally. Of businesses who create, of entrepreneurs who decide to create a business out of necessity. So we need to, and I know my panelists will speak on that, we need to make sure that our business community is aware of the resources. They have, we have excellent organizations with doing exceptional work, producing significant impact on our economy and on individual businesses. But we hear oftentimes businesses are simply not aware or they don't know how to access these resources. So we as a community need to do a better job of bringing them in and giving them these tools. As in Miami-Dade County, where that rate, that constant churn in business creation leads to about 4 out of 10 establishments being young, what we call younger than 5 years. For the first 5 years, only about 45%, just under half of the businesses survive within 5 years of their formation, and about a third don't survive past 10 years. These are the kind of statistics that we keep monitoring and updating in our reports and through infographics as a way to make sure that we improve awareness and also our small business providers can direct resources to the appropriate in the appropriate directions. My final slide, I won't speak much on it because I will actually ask the panelists to talk about challenges and opportunities, and them as the direct service providers who are working in the trenches directly with businesses. They can speak better on that. But these are just some of the, based on our research, based on the business surveys that we've done in the past, that we have noticed. COVID-19, I want to end with this kind of takeaway, what we've been hearing from businesses. Even though it created a new set of challenges, the old challenges were not resolved. They were just magnified. What we've heard 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when we started doing small business surveys, in terms of the importance of workforce development, in terms of the broader structural issues related to housing, to transportation, to connecting with markets. These are still important issues for them, with unfortunately the added challenges now of them having to compete in terms of wages, finding new ways of operation, and obviously making sure that they have the digital connectivity and the supplier chains stability that the pandemic has kind of reinforced the importance of, and that will continue to be important for their survival and for them to thrive. I will end my presentation here. You will see our, as I noted in the chat again, you will see our infographic and more expanded report on our website. We'll share it with you. So please feel free to connect with us, ask us questions. We've been digging in this data for a while, and we're continuing to look at it, and we continue to be a resource to our community and our small business providers. All right, and that concludes my my brief notes. I think I stayed more or less on time.
Yeah, and Maria,
they do
when will
teach
the
us
report...
time management skills at FIU.
And Maria, when will the report be issued? Because I think some of the folks were asking in the chat, or like the slides that you shared.
The slides that I shared, we can put those as well, but I didn't share anything that's not in the report. It's just a condensed version of it. Probably by the end of the week, after this panel, alongside with the recording for the panel, it will be put on our website so that the broader community, those who couldn't attend, also can have access to these resources. Cool.
Yeah. So that answers the questions in the chat. Lillian was helping out mightily. And with that, now we want to hear from our great panelists. You did a good job recruiting a great panel, so we want to hear from them and get their feedback on what they're seeing in the community. So I think what we were going to do is lead off with Althea from SBA.
Okay, well, Maria, that was fabulous. I really am not sure what more I can add to that, except to say, yeah, you're right. But my name is Althea Harris. I'm with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Our office here in Miami covers everything south of Orlando, not including Orlando, all the way down to Key West. And we are a vital resource for small businesses. And I am looking forward to our conversation. I know we have some questions, but I did want to just take a moment to commend you, Maria. That was outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Fabiana, we had you up next.
Yes, it's true. Good afternoon to all of you, the ones that they are participating and taking the time to learn more about what we are doing, because we know what is the situation and what we could do for you in order to help you to achieve your goals, to access to capital. In my case, I'm representing here Ascendus. Ascendus is an organization that we need to provide the access to capital plus the financial education, the technical assistance on a one-on-one. When you are applying for a business loan, when you have a communication with us, we need to review your credit, cash flow, because I was reading, there is a business there that it has been in operation for the last 15 years. That's amazing. Congratulations for you. But sometimes those are the ones that they are really affected, that they are not having the resource with their lender, with their bank. So we are here in order to address this type of situation. So thank you very much for the invitation.
And then before we get to Mirna, I was just going to say, Althea, you got a good shout out from Mark Trowbridge. I think he put like the word love about 10 times. So he's like, we love, love, love Althea Harris. So shout out to Mark for being there and also for being a part of your fan club.
Thank you, Mark.
And then Mirna, you were up next.
You're muted.
I think you're on mute.
There, I just unmuted myself. Hi, everyone. I have prepared a little presentation for you all, but I think it's much better if I save it and we get down to brass tacks by just letting you know that we I represent Prospera. And what we do in culture and in language is attempt to help small businesses in our community do three things: start, sustain, or scale. We do that in a variety of ways, but our secret sauce, I think, is the ability to roll out programming that actually helps with this much maligned handholding that is often required to make sure that we are able to get these immigrant populations, but all other sort of small businesses that are in our area, the information that they require to be able to do things right in a way that will first allow them to sustain, and hopefully for those that it may be appropriate, also scale. I think that the other sort of second part to the magic formula is the fact that we are laser focused on partnerships. And I'm happy to say that everyone around this table works with Prospera robustly with regards to referrals and sort of working off of the strengths of one organization versus the other to make sure that we get the small business owner the best possible access to whatever it is that they may need at a given time. And I think that the other thing that we do well is to meet businesses where they are. So that's another sort of critical mass issue, I think, in South Florida, where we have businesses that may have been around for decades and still may have needs that are very comparable to businesses that are just starting up. So more to come on Prospera and what we do, but I'm delighted to be here and grateful to Maria for this wonderful report that helps us sort of give some real legs to the work that we all do.
And thanks, Mirna. And then Beatrice, you're the closer.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'll forego my PowerPoint as well. This has been, I guess, might be the biggest understatement in terms of challenging for all of us, but particularly our small and minority businesses. I'm the president of the Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council. Everyone calls us the council. We help Hispanic, Asian, African American, and Native American owned companies to grow. Our certification is a national certification that's accepted by over 1,400 corporations, governmental and educational and healthcare institutions. So if you're certified with us, it is a national certification. There is a fee, and we like to think that if you become certified with us, if you utilize our programs and services, you will get your ROI, your return on investment. I want to just spend a couple minutes just sharing a little bit about some of our current programs, how we're helping minority companies, and I'll drop some information in the chat for some upcoming activities. So we help develop our companies by helping them build their capacity to win more contracts, to identify funding and financing opportunities. There have been grants recently, and unfortunately, most companies, particularly when they're startups, ask, where are the grants? They're few and far between, but because of COVID-19 and the recent racial unrest, there have been more grants. And I'm happy to announce a partnership that we're going to have with Comcast that will award $110,000 grants to businesses in Dade and Broward County. I don't have that information yet, but I do know one of the firms cannot have more than 25 employees. I don't know what the sales, what their minimum maximum sales will have to be. So there have been some grant programs, including Amazon that has one as well that's $10,000. So I'll be dropping that in the chat. We're thankful for the relationship we have with the SBA. We are the SBA's 7J management and technical assistance provider. If you're interested in doing business with government, understanding how to do business with the federal government, understanding how to put together a capability statement, what they're buying, one-on-one appointments with government agencies, we provide that service as well as part of that program. So thank you, SBA. And I think I might be the president of the Althea Harris fan club. We also operate a program for the Florida Department of Transportation where we help prime contractors on projects that are $15 million and larger meet their DBE goals, which are disadvantaged business enterprises. Your net worth is capped minus your home, and that does include women, whether you're an ethnic minority or not. And with the recent infrastructure deal that was passed by our congressional representatives, that creates an incredible opportunity for companies that do roadway, highway, road, and so forth. There's going to be opportunities enough for our children's children to eat if you're in the right industry. And it's so critical that companies determine, do they need to pivot? Are they in the wrong industry? And also to what can they do in this digital world and this virtual world to continue to meet their clients' needs. We also have the COVID relief and response program that's helping companies throughout the state who've been impacted by COVID. We do believe in partners, and we have about 15 specialty consultants from lawyers to marketing firms, so the companies that specialize in SEO, sales, that work with our business consultants to provide additional services to our clients, including helping them with the loan forgiveness application. What we've learned over the last 18 months or so is many of our companies do what they do very well, but sometimes the paperwork trips them up, or in order to qualify for the loan, they didn't have their business tax receipt and that held it up, and so forth. So the work that everyone is doing on that's on the panel, and many of you that are participating in this event as guests, is really having an impact, because the need is so great. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll be dropping some information in the chat, and looking forward to answering additional questions and providing input.
Thanks, Beatrice. And then we also did get some questions in the Q&A. We would encourage you guys, don't be shy. I know a lot of the folks that are attending, they're not wallflowers, so please put some of your questions in the Q&A so that we can get to it after we cover some of the initial questions for the panelists. And then I guess, Maria, did you want to kick off the questions?
Yes, thank you, Brian, and thank you to all our panelists. Hopefully the information that they're providing will be used widely, and it will improve access to these services, so much needed services. But Beatrice actually gave me a good segue by alluding to some of the challenges that they seek to address. I want that was actually my first question, and I will ask our panelists, starting with Altia again, to lead us on to that. What are some of the challenges that persist that you observing in the small business community, and how what are the resources that you have that directly respond to them?
Well, thank you, Maria. And having been so dazzled by your report, I neglected to say that I'm with the U.S. Small Business Administration, and we are at the front lines of the pandemic recovery for small businesses, rolling out the PPP loan programs 1 and 2, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the Targeted EIDL Grant, and the Supplemental. And PPP forgiveness now. We are directly involved in that. So if you have any kinds of needs with respect to growing your business, or rather not growing your business, we have programs for that too. But if you need help with financial recovery because of the pandemic, please do reach out to us. Now, you're right. Beatrice mentioned, it's sort of those little foxes that spoil the vine, right? Your paperwork isn't in order, and that's a chronic problem. I've been talking about that for 22 years at SBA. And but one of the things that we're seeing, I think across the board in Miami right now is and you touched on it in your report, Maria, is folks are having a hard time finding employees. Now, that was already a challenge for the smaller small businesses, as you mentioned, but now, they're in competition, generally speaking, over the time of the pandemic in competition with those preferring to draw unemployment rather than work. And so that has been a big challenge. Always a challenge is finding those skilled workers to do what small businesses need them to do, even some with respect to competing against unemployment compensation. I've heard more than one story of employers whose folks come and interview for jobs and then make some demand the employer wouldn't even consider, namely paying them under the table so that they can continue drawing unemployment. And so that has been a challenge because business owners are getting weary, and that's never going to be a good thing. And then the really big problem I've also seen lately, and we touched on it, is access by those micro enterprises to quality information. I have to dispel so many rumors about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and we are keenly interested in connecting with the smallest of small businesses, but we're finding it difficult to locate them, right? Because to your point, Maria, about we have all these startups, but they don't belong to the Coral Gables Chamber, you know, this fabulous chamber that Mark's running. They don't belong to other organizations where people typically, business owners typically get good information. I wonder how many of them are, you know, even on the session. So that is something that we're keenly interested in and trying to find those small businesses to make sure that they can access all of the resources that not only SBA has to offer, but that Prospera has, that Ascendus has, that Career Source has, even in helping them locate employees. So that's kind of what I've seen over the last several months.
Well, what a detailed answer. Fabiana, I saw you unmute yourself. You want to answer the same question. What are you seeing from within the clients that you serve?
Yeah, it's true that is, as Althea mentioned, is chronic. Probably the lack of understanding of the documentation that the small business owner they need in order to apply for a grant, for a business loan, is something that we know that is there. So because we know that the business owner is busy trying to make or get more business. So it's completely, you know, it's something that is a reality. What we could do in order to avoid this type of issue is to give the tools to this business owner to work with the SBDC, with the Prospera, with the SCORE, with all the community organizations, with Beatrice's team, that they are amazing, with those community organizations that they have the tool to help you out. I mean, there's no need to wait for an emergency to probably, we are in Florida, all of us. We know that probably a storm could be, you know, affecting us this weekend. So we need to be ready. How we are going to be ready? With the enough documentation, with having conversation beforehand with our accountant, with our legal team, if we are lucky and we have one, but trying to get the tools to be informed as well. There is a lot of miscommunication. I know somebody there, I guess that is Giovanni, mentioned that he was trying to connect with the SBA. We have to understand that the SBA rule is not to lend or to do lending typically, and the only time that they are doing this type of activity is in this kind of emergency. This is a nationwide emergency. So try to avoid calling the SBA because you will be having a hard time and you get frustrated. What is going to be the solution? Because you, Giovanni, could be saying, hey, Fabiana, that's so simple to say. Call the partners, call the community organizations, try to get assistance with your networking team as well, with your colleagues. Don't get information with those shark lenders or these online lenders, the one that they are not regulated here in Florida, because what we have been seeing, unfortunately, with the PPP, individuals that they were doing the PPP, that is a simple, or it was a simple step to collect documentation, charging the small business owner a fee. It's something that they could do. Yes, they could do because they are charging for a service. But again, this is affecting your small business information in reference of the cash flow because you are paying a commission, which could be okay. Maybe you are going to tell me, Fabian, I'm too busy to do that. But anyway, those are the things that you could do by yourself. be proactive, be very active, try to get in contact and very informed with the tools that you have in the community. We have here, somebody was saying, oh, may we receive this information in Spanish? Probably it's not in Spanish, but remember, Prospera, they have people that they are bilingual. We have people that they could be talking with you in Creole, not very well spoken, but Creole as well. So try to get the resources. The resources, they are out there. That's my 2 cents for that.
Yeah, and I know Mirna had her hand up patiently. She was waiting to go next.
Yeah, I just want to round out what you've heard much more eloquently from both Althea and Fabiana, and that is, yes, there is a robust, I think, resource structure in the community that can offer support. But let's break that down, because typically the initial response is, let's put up a website because it's just easier to deliver services via one centralized point that everyone has access to. So there are right now at least 2, maybe 3 websites that I think are fantastic for as resource points of information. But what are we missing when we offer that as the one and only resource to begin to funnel information? The digital divide. It is not the same thing to know how to use social media on your mobile device than it is to hop online, navigate a website that is giving you information, process that information, figure out how to link to other things, and ultimately end up where you need to. So in the chat, you'll see that I also gave you our phone number. If that's okay, yes, there's a link, but you'll also have a human that will pick up the phone and direct you as best we can. And I think that just to moderate, or not really to moderate expectations, because we've all proven that we can do a lot as a result of this pandemic, but to sort of round off the information. The truth of the matter is that the services exist, but they exist where they exist. So I think in the case of all of our organizations, it's a question of capacity. Until we take that on and say, geography is a challenge in this community. It is a big area to cover. And you know, the good news is that the hard work's been done. We have the proven models that work to help with the problem. The issue now is, how can we roll out this assistance to as vast an area as possible so that as many people as possible have access to it? And Althea, to your point of how to reach that little guy, that's the challenge. Because that guy won't, you know, sending him a link to a grant isn't gonna help, because he may not get it. And Beatrice and I talk about this all the time. You know, so at the end of the day, for this particular population, it's going to be about old school hand-holding, direction, interaction, hand-holding, I say again. And until I think we sort of internalize that and understand that it doesn't make us any less proficient, any less able to expand the economy of this community, it just means that we have to get there a different way. I think that we're going to continue to have, you know, to be posing the same questions to ourselves over and over again as to why are we leaving people behind? Why are people falling through the gaps? Well, here's why, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I would say too, a lot of you guys hit on that, but there's a great need in the community because of the pandemic. There's a lot of challenges for the small businesses. The good thing is there's a lot of programs that have rolled out, like Althea went through the whole list of SVOG, restaurant revitalization, all that. SBA should just have 2 disaster loans, like basically physical damage, economic injury. And now they're doing about 10 programs. And I always kind of joke with the SBA folks, like every time I talk to them, do you have a new program that's rolling out? And they're like, no, that's all we have. But I think for the small business owners, it also, like you guys said, the digital divide, and also just keeping track of all these things. Like, we're paid to track a lot of this stuff, but small businesses, they're running the business. They don't know RISE or SOAR or IDLE or, you know, RRF or SVOG. So it's really tough to keep up with all the programs. And a lot of them do have deadlines that are not like, 3 months long. Some of them are like, a city, like City of Doral or City of North Miami or somebody else. It's like basically 2 weeks and then it's closed, because everybody's applying for it. So I think
And
that has
Brian,
also been, oh, go ahead.
sorry, I'm sorry. Well, and to your point, because some folks are, and Myrna's great points, that people are uninformed, they can fall prey to those who have information, right? So a lot of people contacting me now with trial and challenges with their EIDL, their grant, it's because some intermediary is intercepting that whom they asked to help them, intercepts all the emails, and to try and dislodge those names from accounts is very challenging. We are always on the alert for fraud. And so they find themselves in this catch-22. But at the same time, it was a good thing that they tried to get help from their accountant. But when things fall by the wayside for the accountant, or he moves into tax season, or they have a falling out because the business owner thinks the accountant is charging too much, then they're stuck. And so it's a great opportunity for the accountant, bad for the small business owner. So I would be very interested in some ideas on how do we reach those small businesses who just really don't have access to they have access if they knew about us, right? Because our doors are open for everyone, but to get them that quality information, not rumors, not, bad information, but actually the good quality information about what we're doing, that's the real challenge. And that's what I'd be very interested to hear some ideas around that.
Yeah. And then the second question we had for you guys, you talked about it kind of in the introductions, was what kind of partnerships have you fostered to help collectively tackle the challenges faced by small businesses in the community? I know, Myrna, you kind of touched on it during your remarks. So did you want to kind of lead off on that one?
Absolutely. I think that the COVID pandemic really was also an opportunity for the providers, of those of us around the table, to really think about how we do things, because we were also forced to leave our offices where we are trusted partners in these communities, talk about how do we get these businesses that typically wouldn't receive help. Well, you're in their community, you're constantly trying to do outreach physically, old school, knocking on doors. So the COVID pandemic forced us also into virtual service delivery service model. And for us, that was an opportunity to sort of really rethink, when we say things like, oh, we refer to each other, to really take a look at what that truly means and how we can make it be effective, not necessarily how we scuttlebutt people back and forth. And I think, Brian, well, that the Miami Foundation and Chase supported an initiative for us, for the SBDC and Prospera, to work together to see if we couldn't figure out what the referral model really should look like. So we're not duplicating efforts. So we're not attempting to serve one company, the one that figured out that this resources exist and is going through the program A through Z year after year. And I have to tell you, for me, we receive a lot of important funding that keeps us operating, and we couldn't be more grateful for that. But this particular work has been transformative because it's forced us to look at how we operate, to really understand the partner that you're referring to come up with solutions for what the natural barriers might be in that referral process, and then deal with it. So in that particular area, the work has been really important. And I think that's how we're now looking at all of our partnerships. We are trying to become more informed about what the partners do. Fabi just said something that's critical about the SBA. The bank processes your SBA loan, not the SBA. So if you want to get information on your SBA loan, talk to the bank you filed with, to the SBA representative at your bank or at your community organization. you know, but that's something that is not given. That's something that people, even people that are in the service provider, need to understand and come up with contact structures so that they can work with those SBA bankers themselves. It was a really interesting, challenging, important time for our development. And I think I speak for my colleagues around the table. I mean, I think all of us have to take a look at how we were doing business, and like our clients, pivot, you know, figure out how we were going to do it better, more usefully, more intelligently, if that's even possible, because it really has nothing to do with intelligence, it has to do with opportunity and outreach. But you know, I think that's where I stand with regards to partnerships, Brian. We must partner with as many organizations, because A, it's impossible for us to do it all, to be expert at everything. We don't all have the same missions. We don't do B2B. We have to partner with chambers, because that opportunity is one that we cannot leave on the table. Yet, and chambers shouldn't have to be developing a lot of programming. It's really not what they should be doing. And I maybe don't have the skill set or the depth or enough staff to handle the bigger companies that come to me first, that I refer to you. I mean, the referral piece is key to multiplying all of our resources across the board. But I think it's not enough just to refer. I think we all have to get savvy and interested and involved in what we all need to do so that those referrals are effective.
Beatrice, did you want to go? I see that you unmuted.
I think I've been unmuted for a while and didn't realize it. The thing about South Florida, and Myrna and I talk about this a lot because we work throughout the state. I'm sorry, I should say Miami in particular. I think we need to work more as a region, because many of us work one place, live in the other, and so forth. Unlike Orlando or Tampa, almost all of the economic development activities happen in one location. And so, you know, Prospera, who is the main office is in Orlando, yesterday I was on a call with them, and I'm on a call with them monthly. So I understand what new programs they have, what upcoming activities, and so forth. I don't think at any time has there really been a great focus on what are all of the services, what's working, what's not working, where are the gaps, to better meet the needs of our small businesses. It was so disheartening. Myrna and I sat on the COVID task force for the county, and the county set aside so much money, whether it was for veterans, for women, for restaurants, and much of it was not utilized. The county found other ways to spend the funds, but there seemed to be no great way, no sure proof way to get information to the people that needed them. And so, so we know that funds went without being utilized, just as very similar to what we're dealing with the housing issue, and that the funds for rental relief is not being used. And so I think that's an important role, Maria, that FIU's Metropolitan, because you're doing a lot of research, can play. Also understanding what each organization's strengths are. We had an experience where an agency who normally doesn't provide direct service was referring to us, but when we followed up with the clients, guess what? No response. So Myrna, you may get a referral. After you follow up, you've emailed, you've called, it's time to move on to a customer who is as committed to their success as you are. It's challenging, and I understand we're in the middle of a pandemic, but if you ask for help, the follow-up, I think, is so critical, because you got to help yourself as well. But there is no centralized place to get information, to understand what's hot, immediate, has a deadline, and so forth. So there's a lot of gaps. I know we reviewed applications for Broward, Orange County, and Miami-Dade County for grants, And the best experience we had was in Orange County, Orlando, where all of the agencies are under one roof. And so that's what we all did because we couldn't see clients face to face. So just my team alone, we reviewed over 650 grants. Orlando or Orange County ran out of funds, whereas Miami-Dade County could not dole out the funds and still had money left over.
But
So
Beatrice,
we're doing wrong.
Why was that the case? We have so many businesses here. What do you attribute that to?
Terrible messaging in terms of how do you message? We're all saying the same thing. Getting more of our press partners involved. I think in terms of business, there should be one single, so the only thing that can come to mind is Nike, just do it, grow scale business. There's something wrong in terms of messaging. There's better ways to collect data. The federal government is supposed to do a business census every 5 years. It's behind schedule, so we don't have real-time data to actually plan and to understand, what has been the true impact. So a lot has to change. I'm not a policymaker. I am in no way am interested in being a politician, but we're an immigrant community. We're not a headquarter community. And even those that are coming to Miami, they're not large enough. They're not Fortune 500 companies. So small and minority businesses really fuel our economy. And so there has to be more of a focus on what their needs are. There's a concept called economic gardening. And the idea that what do you do to provide the most support to those that are already homegrown rather than trying to get others to move in, because normally it doesn't add value. We'll provide tax incentives and all of those things, and rarely does it meet the stated initial in terms of what impact it'll have. But if you focus more on those companies that are homegrown, the better we will all be as a community, because where will the kids at FIU that are predominantly FIU, it's a commuter school, the kids are local, where will they go and work? Will they be somewhere where they'll get, be 40 years and get the gold watch if we don't have a strong small business class?
Yeah, and Beatrice, I was going to say, I think the good thing about Maria's report is it does focus on those homegrown businesses and those homegrown industries. So it does kind of give you a good snapshot and good review of kind of what's here, like you're saying. So it helps us, but also helps policymakers and county officials and things like that. But I think Mirna, I saw your hand up, so I know.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of give some context around what Beatrice was saying. Both Beatrice's organization and mine in Orlando are located inside the National Entrepreneurial Center. That is it's really a space that was created by local government and Disney to allow for us all to collaborate jointly to share resources, the conference rooms, the infrastructure for technology, that kind of thing, which made it cost effective for all organizations to locate there. And we're all co-located sort of in the same area. And we share, like, shared office space is such a thing. It's a big thing there. So wonderful for an initiative like that to take off in South Florida. I've heard of a couple of interested ideas around doing something like that, but then geography kicks in. Where would we do it? Blah, blah, blah. And then we're off to the races. So that's a little bit of what Beatrice was talking about as to why we all work together. And then all the partners of the NEC once a month hop on a quick call and talk about what they're doing. So it is true that to act like a region in that capacity helps with what we were saying earlier, that for these resources to be more than just shuttling names back and forth, we all need to learn a little bit more about what we do, how we do it, the space that we're in. And this is a quick fire way to get there. With regards to Althea's question of how and why money was left on the table, I mean, certainly the messaging was a significant part of the issue, but there were also deadlines. And that's where what you were talking about, Althea, kicks in. When the messaging worked, and when we had people come in, and I have to tell you, we processed a lot of loans and IDLs and all sorts of stuff. And when people walked in the door, sometimes we had to back up a month in order to get them to finish their income tax return. Because what people don't understand about how the federal government rolls out relief is that even if it's a grant, you still have to qualify. To qualify, they are still going to require basic business practices. So what happens is that people are walking in the door, the deadline is the end of the year, this is rolled out late. Maybe what, Fabiana, July, which was early when you think about how the federal government was able to move this monster forward. But by now, we have a big situation regarding how to reconcile what typically we do and we require for business grants or business loans at the federal level with what the reality was on the ground at a given time, the time of year it was, the types of businesses. It took a second iteration to get solo proprietors included in PPP. And I have to tell you, I have never been more proud of the federal government because they have acted, and the SBA has led the charge with this thing, has course corrected, has moved forward, has recognized the issues. You know, it's a big bureaucracy. So what happened, Beatrice? Even if we would have rolled out the messaging, and I wasn't involved with the messaging, when I say we, I say Miami-Dade County, or even if that messaging would have been a lot more effective, who the heck knows if there were enough boots on the ground to really deal with all of the ancillary issues that came up in order to even qualify. And again, you know, the qualifications kept getting revised. And I know for both RISE and for the other grant, they were changing the qualifications as issues came up, but it was just too much, too fast. No excuses, but in all fairness, I think everybody tried their best to do their best out there. It was
And
just
Althea, I know you had your hand up, Althea.
Yeah, I just would wonder, maybe rhetorically, maybe actually asking Maria, you know, is there another community outside of the vain answer of no, of course not? Is there another community in the United States like ours, right? That we can look to as an example, potentially, of how they're able to maybe do better than we are with reaching some of our micro enterprises, right? So that's a question that might be interesting to look at. And then I want to thank Mirna for saying, you know, what we've been up to, because it has been a very challenging time. And I don't want the folks who are listening to miss that you must make an investment in your infrastructure. And that is your paperwork and all that. But here's the other thing I think that just kind of came to me as, what can a person who's on this line do, right? Because what we've talked about is the quality of the information that small businesses and the smallest small businesses have access to. I mean, we have only scratched the surface, friends, of what is available by way of resource in Miami-Dade County. These lady champions, just the surface. There are so many organizations. And so I think my pro tip for today would be, look, pick one and befriend them, because we all know each other and we all work with each other and we do make referrals and we do know what's going on. And even if I don't know right now what Mirna's doing, is nothing but a phone call or an email or a text to find out and get back to you. So that might be for the smallest small business who has the challenge of getting quality information, is to find a resource that actually provides value to you, right? So maybe it's Micro Business USA, maybe it's Fabiana, maybe it's me, maybe it's Beatrice, but befriend one of us, right? One of our organizations, and stay in touch periodically. Be on our e-distribution list and just connect yourself to one quality source. And as you go along, you will discover who the others are, and you will have access to the others because of the one you invested in. And so in that way, grow your access to quality information rather than listening to that person on the corner who may or may not know what they're talking about. You know, listening to your mother-in-law who's hounding you, you better da, 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 da. And she may or may not know what she's talking about. But we certainly do. We certainly are plugged in with each other and what is happening in the small business community. So that thought just came to me and I wanted to share that.
Yeah. And I know, like, you gave a shout out to the panelists because all the groups work really hard. But I know the folks that are attending, we don't have capes, so we can't do everything. We do refer to a lot of the organizations. You know, we try to be collaborative. We know resources. A lot of us have webinars and different panels like this, and we have the other groups on. I did want to have one final question before we get to the questions from the audience. And shout out to Raisa, who's got a really good question that she has put up about 4 times. So I want to give a shout out. And actually, basically the question we had was, are there any services small businesses in the community need that aren't currently provided in Miami-Dade? And she actually pointed one out multiple times in the chat and the Q&A. So shout out to her about how when somebody registers for a business tax receipt or they open a new business in the county or the city, they don't get like a welcome package. They don't get like a package of information. Like, here's the folks you should call. You should call Mirna. You should call Beatrice. You know, call Fabiana. So I think that is something that is a very basic thing that you could have that type of information that's available just in the whole list of everybody. You don't have to be exclusive. You can just list everybody. And I know there's a lot of groups like Access Helps, like Labor Miami, like the Beacon Council has a list of small business resources too. And a lot of that stuff is easy to pull together. It's not like it's not out there in the ether somewhere. But I think that was one idea that was actually proposed by the audience. Do you guys have any suggestions in terms of services towards small businesses that are currently not provided in Miami-Dade or could be provided, or could be, like you said, like a best practice, Althea, or something like that?
Well, I thank you, Raisa, because I responded to your idea as well, saying, you know, a lot of times, you know, organizations choose the technology route for efficiency's sake, and Midnight spoke eloquently about how that's not always the right answer, right? For me to navigate a website or what have you. So that is an excellent idea that, you know, the end user will have to validate as helpful. But then beyond that, honestly, I think we've got all the bases covered in this county. I can't think of a thing that one organization or another isn't doing to help small businesses. The pandemic has been helpful in that now we are offering so much more programming, obviously online, that we weren't able to do before, that you weren't able to get to before because of, you know, raining outside, and now you don't feel like fighting the traffic. We've really covered a lot of it. And so if someone has an answer to that question, I want to hear about it so that we can get it addressed.
If I can add, Althea, you asked, you kind of gave us the charge to figure out how can we find these businesses? If we don't find them, they'll never get the information, right? All the organizations, excellent organizations in our community, ultimately only serve businesses that reach out to them, with small exceptions that they take targeted efforts. I know, for example, Brian, I mentioned we do that in our work. The way we get information about their needs is by reaching out to them directly, actually door knocking, making phone calls, reaching out through email for those for whom we have a reliable email. But ultimately, you need to speak with somebody who can give you these answers. And the way we can do that, I mean, that's one solution for the new businesses that are submitting, you know, an application for a business tax receipt. What about the businesses that are already here, the tens of thousands of businesses that are already here and that we know can benefit from these services? How do we get to them? It will take effort. It will take resources. We need to go directly to where they are, not just send them an email, but actually go to the business and tell them, this is who we are. These are the other organizations that are in our community. So that business package that we give to new businesses also would be beneficial for the businesses that are here. And then based on the services each organization provides, we leave it up to them to conduct them with the caveat that businesses don't know what they don't know, right? They may think they're operating efficiently. They're making, you know, whatever money they're making, paying employees, but they're at a standstill. And if we open their eyes to the other opportunities that are there for growth, for those that want to grow, because not every business is going in that direction. Some are simply content to be where they are. But if we open their eyes through that personal information dissemination to what's out there, what they can benefit from, I think it's a great opportunity for our community. With resources, with effort, with these collaborations that everybody spoke about, I think it can be done.
Yeah, and I had a suggestion too, Maria, in terms of something that other cities do is related to expedited permitting. Because if you think about a business that's opening up a physical location, or if it's a business that's looking to expand, the permitting and all the permits and the inspections and all that, that's basically like death by 1,000 cuts in terms of a lot of these businesses. And a lot of times we'll get a business like an SBA loan or something else, and I thought it already closed, or I thought things were like in good shape, and I'll check back and it's been like 2 months, 3 months, because I know other cities, what they do is it's not for every business, but they will, if it's a business that is in a particular industry that's located in an area where they want to grow out like a cluster, or kind of like attract more businesses in that area, they will do expedited permitting. So they'll help them to kind of, you know, have a permit runner and kind of help them run through the process and make it a smooth thing. And I think if we did that, not just like a big, like kind of Amazon thing or some kind of big company that's coming in, but even if it's like a dental practice, or if it's something else that's kind of local, that you want to grow more of those type of businesses. I mean, we're a service economy. I think that would be something that could really help, especially around the county and some of the municipalities, because they really are struggling to get a lot of these local businesses. And a lot of the businesses we've seen that have opened up new businesses, they're already existing businesses that are just opening a new location. So they've already got a model, they've already got like employees and things like that. So I see Althea has her hand up.
Okay, so I should have clarified. We are awesome. And yes, you know, the municipalities could do a lot better, I think, to your point, Brian, because some of those things really are, they are real blockades to the progress of small business. I'm not saying municipalities don't have their reasons. I'm just asking for them to rethink those reasons, right? And to really invest in the growth of small businesses, like you said, even in particular industries, so that those folks are not hindered unnecessarily and for protracted periods of time, because time is money. And then the other thing, to your point, Maria, you know, you're right. Sometimes we just need to go out to them. And so we've done that. Brian and I and some of our lenders and other nonprofit resource partners have gone and walked communities down in Homestead in Dade County. We had planned to do one over on 8th Street, and then the pandemic. And then I've done them in rural communities around our territory. And that is a very one-on-one, close proximity kind of activity that really fosters goodwill and has to be done in partnership, I think, with economic development directors, because they know their communities, they know the players, or the chambers. They tend to know the players in their communities. I found that the chamber presidents in this county are tremendous advocates for small businesses. And so I agree with you. And the pandemic just made everything so, but, you know, I guess if we can social distance and put our masks on, that is definitely something that can be done. And it would really be helpful if we could get, you know, some media attention around that kind of thing, because people do still get their news holding the paper. They do still get their news on television. So I think that might be a way of connecting with our smallest small businesses as well, to go through the media that they utilize.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like you said, incorporating local economic development groups, chambers, community groups, and I know this is something Myrna and I always talk about. They're only successful if you get those trusted partners in that community to be part of the canvassing and to kind of help you out, because they can open the doors for a lot of those groups. Fabiana, I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, I would like to add something in reference of the connection and why, for example, our friend Altia is receiving all the flowers today, because she's very open and she's transparent, and she's not going to give you an information that is not going to work for you. I'm telling the same with Beatriz, with Mirna, and with Brian. All of us, we could be, even the situation, if there's no solution, or maybe there is something that we cannot do, we are going to be very upfront with you. So that's the reason it's important for you guys as entrepreneurs to find a trusted source. And when I'm thinking in trusted source, what we do in our normal life, we are not going to get or wait until we are sick to get to the doctor, or get obese to go to the gym, or I don't know, we go to church, we go to different spaces, we talk with our friends when we are opening a business, what is the best suggestion for every single, activity that we do in life. We always talk with our close friends, allies. So try to be connected with your own, network as well. This is something very important. Beatriz mentioned to be enrolled with the newsletter. That's the information as well. The newspaper is going to arrive to your house. You are not going to go to the Miami Herald location to pick up the paper. So you have to be active as well in order to get that information and have all the resources, close to your benefit and working for you. Your accountant, your legal, your bank, try to understand as well if your lender likes the type of industry that you are working with. Your lender could be giving you an advice if you're ready or not for an SBA loan. Or what about the PPP? What happened with the PPP and individuals that they were not having the account, the business account with their lender, or maybe the credit card? So they were rejected. Is this a relationship that is going to benefit my business? So those are the questions. It's a moment that we have to reflect on ourselves, on our activity, in order to get better for the future, and trust the people that they are transparent, that they are, talking with you with the reality, and not creating false expectation. That's important as well.
And then Myrna, I saw you had your hand up.
Who knows, man? You guys are too fast for me. There's just too much good stuff coming out of this conversation. I think just a couple shout outs. They're in the city of Miami, and I know Raisa's business. She does excellent work with Healthy Little Havana, another organization that's trying to approach a more holistic sort of way of looking at small business development as it relates to just overall community well-being. The city of Miami has what they call their Opportunity Center. And I think Mike Roman and his team there, at least they're humans. I don't know that they'll be better able to resolve any of the issues, but at least that you can call a place and talk to someone that will explain to you what the process for whatever it is that you may need will be. The chances that they're going to be able to help you are good. So the city of Miami does have that kind of a help center scenario set up for small businesses, but not exclusively. It's really for whomever calls that has a business related issue. I don't know that it's specific to small business challenges. We get a lot of referrals from them, but at least it's somebody that can tell you, look, this is what Prospera is. And if you call them, this is what they're going to be able to do for you. And go ahead, call them. It's free of charge. So, shout out to what's happening in the city of Miami with regards to that. And I think that in Miami-Dade County, there is a desire to be more responsive, to understand the moment that we're living in this community. And it's a big county. So again, it's gonna take a minute. I'm hoping. I don't work for the county. I have no fund, nothing. So I'm just thinking, just from the perspective of being a citizen of Miami-Dade County, it's going to be hard for them to be able to kickstart something like is needed right now. But I think the will is there. I'm standing by to see what happens.
Yeah. And then we do have a couple of questions in the chat, but before we do that, I just wanted to kind of like do the clap for our great panelists that have been here. I think we could go probably another hour, but we know that they're all super busy, so they probably have another meeting they're going to hop into coming up soon. But let's just get to a couple of the questions. Jim Birch, I think he's out of Southwest Florida. He mentioned about small business means so many things, from less to 10 to less to 100. The smaller the business, it seems the bigger the problems. There's a lot of funding opportunities from the rescue plan, but it's overwhelming. What would be the recommendation for small businesses, let's say less than 20, to take advantage of the help? So related to the rescue plan. I know that there was a couple of programs, not just SBA, but a couple of other programs available too. I would say a lot of the groups around this panel are groups that are helping with those particular programs. So I kind of give the easy answer. Reach out to Prospera, to Beatrice's group, to Fabiana, to Althea, to SBDC.
And connected to that, we have another question: how, what would be the best way to reach the organizations with our panelists' permission? If you agree, we would like to share your information with all the attendees so that they can reach out to you directly now that they've heard about all the great work that you're doing and the types of services your organizations provide. I see everybody nodding their heads.
I already put it in the chat. You already have my contact info in the chat.
Yeah, we'll just compile from everybody, and alongside with the report and the other panel information, we will send it so all our participants
just
can
put in the
access
subject line like referral from Maria, or I'm a member of Althea's fan club. Either one of those, you'll get the email responded to.
Hey, Brian, I don't know if you saw it. It wasn't in the question, but there is a woman who put in the chat that she's been in business 32 years. She owns a daycare. She cannot find employees, which I think is she's saying that's her biggest challenge, which is impacting her financially. Wanted to give her some recommendations really quickly. If she has not reached out to CareerSource to assist, to see how they might be able to help you identify employees. Also, I know the Beacon Council is doing a program specifically trying to place people in various roles. What's good about the CareerSource program is that they'll provide training. So even if the person does not have a childcare experience, you could get some training. I know small businesses are competing with some large employers that are providing a lot of incentives and higher pay and so forth. But training may be a great way to set yourself apart if the employees know that they will have an opportunity for growth and professional growth and development. I'm going to grab CareerSource's website address and put it in the chat for you, but also wanted to know if she could put in the chat whether she's applied for whether she applied for any of the SBA programs in terms of EIDL or PPP. And I did put in the chat the 10,000, the two grant programs that are, excuse me, the one that I have the link for already, but I want to see what we might be able to do to help her, because if it wasn't for COVID, probably she would not find herself in this position. And if we could help one person today stave off some of the challenges, because it's such a it's so stressful being an entrepreneur right now, we want to help. So I don't know if she could add additional information, but I'll go ahead and put CareerSource's information in the chat.
Oh, thanks for flagging that.
Thank you.
And then I was going to say they did have another question that was related to from Andrea on clients who've applied for SBA, having questions or not sure of the responses they received. Who would be the best person to call? I think she is going to get the contact information for SBA and also for SBDC and a lot of folks around the table. There's some things where it could be answered just by the customer service, like calling in to the SBA. There's some other ones that are a little trickier that need some more hand holding and some more review. So I think for that one, they'll get our contact information and also SBA's, because a lot of times we'll get a referral from the district office. from SBA that like this one needs a deeper dive or some more information. So I would just encourage Andrea to check out the contact information she's going to get on all the groups.
But I know what I'm asking, but I also think this is a good point to remind folks that patience is a virtue. I know it's hard to be patient in the middle of a pandemic, but there's a backlog at the SBA. That's just the truth. And that's reflective of the need. And everybody's trying to do the best they can. I sincerely believe that.
Yeah. And I would just mention to you guys too that everybody has good intentions, but there is a lot of fraud that's going on with a lot of the programs that are out there. And so at the end of the day, it is having a lot more review of a lot of the applications and a lot of the information that's submitted. And so that's why it also is taking a little longer for some of these applications, because they need to make sure they've got overwhelming amounts of applications. And also there have been a few that have been fraudulent or people trying to get money when they shouldn't. So they got to kind of scrutinize everything they get. And then I see Raisa did also have another question. It was more directed at the chambers. Why do so many chambers not support a raise in wages for workers? As a small business owner, I have to pay higher wages in order to retain good and trustworthy employees. This is important for many of the service workers and industry. And I know I live off of Bird Road, and I've actually seen a couple of the restaurants where they're like, we are hiring and we are paying $12 an hour, or we are paying this much per hour. So I know the businesses, kind of back to Althea had mentioned earlier about the challenges they're having with workers. They are really advertising that they're paying higher wages, that they're recruiting. They also have
paying bonuses.
Mhm.
And it's really challenging. And I find it fascinating because I have 3 teenagers over here asking me for money all the time. I said, look, go get a job. There are plenty of jobs out here.
Target is paying $20 an hour.
Wow. But I know
that's the challenge I mentioned. How do small businesses compete with these larger corporations or corporate establishments?
Yeah, and I know we have a client that they work with a lot of the high-end resorts, like the chain resorts in the Caribbean and Latin America, and they give them like all the equipment and the supplies and all the stuff that they need. And they actually did the right thing during COVID. They've been kind of beefing up their financial management and also their operations and kind of streamlining and improving. But now they're having trouble getting employees for financial management and operations and their warehouse because they export a lot of stuff. So I think, it's not just the restaurants that are feeling it, everybody's feeling it too. But I guess, Maria, did you want to let them make any closing remarks? Did you want to close out? Kind of, how you want to close out?
My only closing remark is I'll just repeat what I said, what the pleasure it has been to hear from our most prominent organizations that are doing such great work. And thank them for the information that they gave us here and for their continued assistance to all our businesses, small, medium, large, minority, new ones, migrant businesses. I mean, these organizations and the others that they mentioned really have a broad reach, or as broad reach as they can, given the awareness challenges that we have on services in our community. I'll just ask the participants if they want to close with final remarks, and then we will end this webinar. Be on the lookout for a follow-up email with the information we mentioned from us.
Yeah, any closing remarks?
Thank you.
Yeah, first, can I just say thanks so much for having this forum. Thank you for including me. For those of you who are listening, I know a lot has been said here. One practice I try to do whenever I'm inundated by information is just to pick one thing and do that one thing, commit to doing that one thing next. And as I said, my hot tip for today is, befriend one of us as an organization and begin to be drawn into all of the resources that are available to help you. And I just want to say once more, thanks, Maria, for that fabulous report. That's going to be so helpful for the rest of us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
No, thank you. And Mirna, I saw you had something too.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you and ditto.
just
And Beatrice?
for closing remarks, besides thank you for setting this session up, for the business owners that are out there, and Ms. Rock and I, Zona Rock, we're messaging back and forth. You know, you play such an important role in our economy. I think if you've got to make some tough decisions to survive, make them now, and get the assistance that you need, and be incredibly persistent. If you're not, it's going to be challenging, because, you know, getting some things about, hey, not getting callback and so forth, you really are going to have to be consistent. And I know anyone that's probably heard me present before, I say, you know, entrepreneurship is the definition of insanity, okay? Because you have decided to bet on yourself, but at the same time, it's the quickest way to wealth. And so, you know, maybe we're the crazy ones because we work for folks, okay? So, but you play such an important role, and, you know, and I congratulate you for, you know, making the decision to be an entrepreneur. I know this is a challenging time, but please hang in there. You got to make cuts. If you've got to pivot, if you've got to joint venture, strategic alliances, identify new partners to survive, that's what you have to do, because we don't want a firm that's been around for 32 years to no longer be in existence. So we want to help you. And yes, I agree, with God's grace, you will survive. Yes, that's the last word for me. Thank you so
Fabiana,
much.
anything else on your end?
Yes, I really like Maria's report. Awesome. Thank you, Lillian, for having all of us here today. And you, Brian, that we are able to coordinate 6 women talking together on time,
Yeah.
perfectly fine. So you are the man. Thank you very much. And for the business owner that they are there, try to get advantage. Again, pandemic equal to opportunity to grow, opportunity maybe to close your business and think in another activity. I don't know. You have to make the right decision. But try to be, again, in connection with us, because we are going to be able to help you out. There are a lot of programs out there with low interest rate. Maybe you need a loan, 4%. We have a loan with a program with Ascendus, that is the SOAR program. There is a program at 0 interest rate for restaurant, but maybe you don't need a loan. Maybe you need a new branding kit that Prospera could help you out, or maybe you need to have a conversation with Beatrice, a team and assistant. So try to be able to identify what is the real need for your business. Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and thanks again to Maria, and thanks again to our panelists for all the hard work that they do. And I know they're going to get right back to it as soon as they get off the Zoom call. So just thanks to our attendees, and Maria will be sending out the contact information
Yes.
and the report.
Applause for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Maria, I missed your presentation. I'm hoping that you're going to forward it to the panelists as well.
Yes.
Okay. What was the impetus for hosting this? What made you all decide to host this?